Today I'll be sharing my review on Metroid Dread, a new 2D Metroid. Well, that's a phrase you haven't been able to say for nearly 2 decades now, but a welcome one for sure. I might be a little bit late to the party on this one, but it's better late than never to get a review out, I guess. Before I get to that review though, I'd ask that if you're new to SirLink Gaming, you consider subscribing to the channel, where you can see reviews for big Switch titles like Metroid Dread here, and reviews for games that you can get on sale for under $5 by checking out my Worth a Fiver series videos. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get to it.
I am digging the behavior Nintendo has started with some of their first-party games recently, whereby they announce a new game, and within a few months it's out. As was the case with Metroid Dread when they announced the game at E3, and later shared it would launch alongside the OLED Switch in October of 2021. The behavior might be because of the uncertainty of the pandemic, and the difficulty of releasing games on schedule. That might have something to do with it. Or it might be the blowback they got after announcing titles like Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta 3, with the years of radio silence that followed. There were rumblings of Metroid Dread back in the mid-2000s, although it's not apparent whether or not any of the Switch Dread has any of the content from that long-rumored game, but it is the first new 2D Metroid game in a long time. Stress on the new, because both 2017's Samus's Return on 3DS was a remake of Samus Returns on Game Boy, and 2004's Metroid Zero Mission was a remake of the original Metroid on NES. So technically, not new entries to the series, but prettier versions of older releases. When it comes to a new 2D Metroid, this one's been a long time coming, with the last title being Metroid Fusion on Game Boy Advance, to which Metroid Dread is actually a successor of. We haven't been absent new Metroid games though, as we've been treated to the Prime trilogy, and that other release on Wii. I mean, at this point, is Metroid Other M even worth mentioning? I've went on too long, so let me get to my thoughts on Metroid Dread. I've played most, if not all, Metroid games to this point in time, and with the exception of the aforementioned Metroid Other M, I've enjoyed them all. But that might not mean that Metroid Dread is for you. On my new Switch OLED, this game is gorgeous. Nintendo certainly chose the right showpiece to launch aside its refreshed Switch hardware. Even though Metroid Dread is a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania, now for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term, this is the type of game that has you progressing by collecting power-ups, and you will be backtracking to areas you've already been in with these new power-ups, with the ability to access new paths. This was made famous from early Metroid and Castlevania games, hence a Metroidvania. The details of Planet ZDR are a really nice touch, and the cutscenes look particularly crisp on the fancy new screen. If you are familiar with other 2D Metroid games, Samus's arsenal is pretty standard fare in Metroid Dread. A couple tweaks to familiar items, but there really wasn't anything here that you can upgrade that felt really outside of the box. You do get a cloaking ability that's a pretty cool effect, although you're limited in your movements while cloaked, so don't expect to use it all that often. And also know that the Morph Ball is not one of the first few upgrades that you get, which felt a bit strange, but you can slide under smaller obstacles which will tide you over until you get it. The counter mechanic that the 3DS's Samus Returns introduced, and although repetitive in that game, has significantly improved its execution in Metroid Dread. Enemies will indicate your opportunity to counter them with a split-second spark, and that will be your cue to hit the X button and counter, and blast them away for extra energy and missiles. You'll be countering bosses, and trying to do it against the E.M.M.Is that catch you. I was never really able to hit the timing on the E.M.M.Is consistently, but know that there's a chance to escape, albeit minor. I'll briefly touch on those E.M.M.Is though. You quickly learn that they were sent to planet ZDR to search for the X-Parasite, and were reprogrammed to, spoiler alert, hunt you for your Metroid DNA, now that the Metroids are extinct. You need to destroy them as you go after and obtain the Omega Blaster, which is a temporary power-up that will have you melting their face shield away and blowing their brains out. But blowing their brains out is okay, because they're just a robot after all. You find E.M.M.I's specific zones in each area of the map, and avoiding them can become a bit of a bore as you just want to get to the other side, and they just keep on detecting you. You do soon get a hang of their movements, and avoiding them does get easier. Finally, the boss battles. By now you might have seen that at least one familiar face returns. And it was a pretty fun, nostalgic battle, and if you happen to sequence break, and get the Morph Ball bombs early, you can defeat them in a pretty gruesome way. I did not do this, but will certainly be looking into trying to do this in a future playthrough. The other battles are okay. Sometimes they got a bit challenging, as one hit would seemingly cause 2 full energy tanks worth of damage, ending things rather quickly at times. But you learn the routines of the bosses, and should be able to take them out without too much frustration. When it comes to the story in Metroid Dread, it's pretty standard fare, and is explained through cutscenes. Don't expect to uncover too much lore or history as you play through. Overall, I'm very happy I picked up Metroid Dread. It had the right amount of challenge, and power-ups were not too difficult to find, with the maps helping to direct you to the ones that you were missing, which means you don't have to go online to find out how to get them. But if you do, be sure to check out my YouTube shorts where I posted my solutions to some of the harder Spine Shark puzzles amongst others. It took me 12 hours to get through Metroid Dread the first time, while collecting all of the power-ups for 100% completion. But I will certainly be playing through again, as I think you should too, because I highly recommend Metroid Dread. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Did you pick up Metroid Dread? Would you recommend it to others? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you in my next video.